As a migration lawyer, I get asked the same question over and over again. What's my chance of getting permanent residency for a subclass 190 or 189? What's my chance? This is my score. This is my occupation. In this video, I'm going to walk you through what you actually need to do and what my honest opinions when I see these type of questions. Without further ado, let's get started. Hi, my name is Johnny. In case this is the first time you see me, I'm a migration lawyer in Sydney and I post daily content on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts to help people like you to get PR faster. And as a migration lawyer, I get asked all the time. For the general skill migration program in Australia, it consists of three major visa types: the 189, the 190, and 491. All three of them are point tested. All three of them require either the Department of Home Affairs to apply for the visa or a state or territory government to nominate you to apply for this visa. With no exemption. You always need to have someone to nominate you to apply. You can't simply say, I want this, and then you apply. Now, it comes with a fundamental question. In order to apply for this type of visas, it comes with a points test table. It literally allocates points to you as an applicant based on your age, your English abilities, your work experience level, your highest level academic, whether or not you have taken certain tests, and also whether or not your partner speak a minimum of competent English, these sort of things. Which is minimum points to apply is 65 points across all three visas. So you need to go through the points table to get 65 for it. And there's another thing that a lot of people forgot about is that the nominated occupation, meaning which occupation that you're using to apply for this visa, is also extremely important, as opposed to purely just points. If you're a registered nurse during COVID period, yeah, you'll get a visa even if you just scratch the absolute minimum, which is 65 points. But if you are, something that is of less demanded, then of course it's less likely for you to get invited if you have a lowest points. However, things are very different nowadays comparing to previous financial years. I can see that except for the 189 visa program, which is still the ranking the highest points and the longest period of time in the pool and the highest points, then they start inviting people from top to the bottom and with nothing else, because that's the federal government's policies. So that's that. The higher the points, the better you are. The rest of them, the second and third visa, the 190 and the 491 visas, they are very different now. For all the states and territories, you will also need to meet their own nomination requirement. As you remember, you need to get nominated before you can apply for 190 and 491. So if you want to apply for that, you need to go to that state and then check whether or not you fit one of the pathways, one of the requirements, so that you may apply for them to sponsor you on this visa. And also it goes through, and apart from the federal list, which is the overall 300, 400 occupations, each different state may have their own list. Like say WA, they have their own list. New South Wales have their own list. The list is very small. And Victoria, they're basically saying I would invite anyone, but doesn't really say how. And those sort of things. Coming back to the question, when people ask me the question, what's my chance, this is my occupation, there are a couple of things that I always do. Number one, whether or not your nominated occupation can actually apply for the 189, 190 or 491. Only occupations on the medium to long term list can apply 189 visa. Apart from that, no. For occupations on the short term list and regional occupation list, they can apply for the 190 and 491 visa. And of course, when it comes to only the regional area list, you can only apply for 491 and also potentially 494 if you're going for the employer-sponsored pathway. Things are very different when it comes to. So this is the first question that I ask. The second question is, where are you at the moment? Are you currently offshore? Then we look into the offshore pathway. Do these states or territories actually take in offshore people? If not, then there's no chance. Doesn't matter if you have 200 points, which is impossible, but if you have maxed out your points, it doesn't matter because you're not eligible. They just don't want your occupation, or they can't accept people who are applying from overseas. So that's one. Number two is, if you're in one of the states, say if you're in New South Wales, then whether or not your occupation can actually apply for a New South Wales nomination. For example, as a chef, you can apply for 189, 190 and 491. The federal government, they're happy for you. But remember, you need to be nominated. So apart from 189, when it comes to 190 and 491, chef then we need to look into whether or not it fits into that state's or territory's skills occupation list. In New South Wales, they don't have chef on the list. What it means now is that for a chef, you can only potentially apply for 189 because you live in New South Wales, unless there are other states that are happy to accept interstate applicants. It's also happen to be on their occupation list. If this is the case, yes. So that's the other question. Number 3 is what is your points and how competitive is that occupation? For example, if you are an accountant and you only have 70 points and you're asking me 189, 190 and 491, I'll probably tell you to go away because they're asking for 95 points at least. I'm seeing invitation for 195 and you're only 70 points. You're 25 points less than the required points. Then I would recommend you to look into some other options. There are other things that I also talked about. When it comes to the points table, I usually put it into 2 categories. Category 1 is things that you can change. The other category 2, is things that you can't change. What are the things that you can change? English school, you can change. Study harder or try harder, try different testing center. That's something you can change. Take the CCL test, which is the Credential Community Language. If your native language is on the list, then you get automated 5 points. That also can change. Of course, consider studying in the regional area or make sure you have at least 2 years, meet the Australian study requirements. That would, extra points, or upskill properly. That will be extra points. Those are the things that you can change, or also choosing to work in your nominated occupation. That would be something that you can change. And I would always recommend, before asking any lawyers, what's your chance? I would ask the person, have you completed your project? What it means is that, have you tried your absolute best in the English school? Have you tried absolute best in finding a job in your nominated occupation? Have you completed your CCL? If you have a partner, have your partner completed the English test? Can your partner apply for a skill assessment? If your partner can't apply for a skill assessment, is your partner happy to consider studying something to give you a skill assessment? These are the things that can change. And I will always ask my clients, whoever would attended my initial consultation, whether or not they have done all the things that they could. If they've done all the things that they could, then you can have a peace in mind. The other things that you can't change is your age. You simply can't change your age. We can't travel back, right? If you're 41 years old or if you're already 46, we can't jump on a time machine and travel back in time. So I wouldn't linger on age, I wouldn't linger on things that you can't change. I'll always look into all the variables that you actually have power to change. And those will be the general skilled migration pathway. And there's one also very important and frequently asked questions, which is whether or not you should move to another state. You always move strategically. Going back to the chef example, saying you're a chef and you're in New South Wales, then you're not on the New South Wales skill list. And it makes sense if you're moving from New South Wales to Western Australia, for example, because they have tons of quotas. Then it would make sense to move there. I'm okay with that. Or you're moving to Canberra because you have brothers and cousins there, and then you know everyone there, and then you know restaurants who may potentially sponsor you there, give you a job. Yes. But if you're just moving for the sake of moving, then not the best idea. When you move, you got to think very carefully what you need to do. You're departing from your current migration pathway to a completely new state, and you also got to make sure that you understand the state policy over there. Once you move there, do they have a residency requirement? Say you got to be there for at least 3 to 6 months before they would even consider your application. Double check that. That's very, very important. There's also some other people who talked about, hey, maybe I should study something during my graduate visa so that I can jump on to a new occupation, and using the new occupation to potentially submit a skill visa, which, have a history of inviting only at 65 points. Unless you don't have a pathway, otherwise I don't really recommend it because, for example, recently, graduate diploma early child education is a massive hit, and the last 189 round, which is many months ago, it was last year, they invited people at 65. God knows whether or not they will still invite people at 65 in the next 189 round. What if they don't, and you only have 65? Then you're stuck, isn't it? So these are the things that are speculative, and you've got to take it with a grain of salt, and you've got to think about it very carefully. And if you have no clue, or if you want to double check, I would certainly recommend a migration lawyer, a really competent professional migration lawyer who will offer ethical advice to help you to explaining to get through this type of migration planning, to let you know what are the options or the actions that you can take in order to give you the best shot in getting an Australian permanent residency visa. So this is today's episode. If you haven't hit the subscribe, like this video, comment if you got questions to ask, share this with your friends, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Ciao.